Hey, hope you're all safe and healthy. Welcome to a little warm-up video. Just thought, given the fact that we're all in isolation and needing a bit of motivation, every day I'm trying to do a fairly short warm-up series of exercises just to get my hands going and the blood flowing to my fingers, and just to get everything moving, and it just helps me then get into some of the pieces that I'm working on and some of the practice that I'm doing. I'm sure you're in the same boat. Lots of students trying to keep working out there and trying to keep some regularity of practice and a bit of fun to it and a bit of interest to it. So maybe it helps if I share with you some of the things I'm doing. I'll go from fairly basic through to some quite advanced techniques. Not be too long, but just something that you can take some of the ideas from and build them into your own little routine. You probably only need to be warming up for 15-20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes maximum every day before you can sort of get yourself working through your PCs or through whatever material it is that you're studying. So let's get straight to it. The first thing I always warm up is my right hand. I do it with a really simple pattern, P-P-P-I-M-A. So that's thumb through the 3 bass strings and then index, middle and ring finger through the treble strings. So I literally just plant the fingers on the G, B and E string, so that's index, middle and ring finger planted, just nice and relaxed, just sitting on top of the string, and the thumb starts to pluck through the bass like you can hear. So I'm just doing P, P, P on E, A and D strings, and then I put the thumb back on the D string, and this is when I start to release the fingers. So that was then the index releasing the middle and the ring finger. So that was the transition between the bass strings and the treble strings. So here we go again. P, 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 I, M, A, and then I start coming back down. Middle finger takes the B string, index finger takes the G string, the 3 fingers sit back down on the treble strings, and that releases the thumb to make its way to the low E string again. So that's just going through the open strings in a nice pattern, a nice sensible order with the right hand, and also allowing for a little bit of planting. And what that is the fingers waiting on the treble strings while the thumb works, and then vice versa. As the fingers are plucking the strings, the thumb is nice and balanced on the D string. So there's always something making contact with the strings. So P, 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 then I, M, A, and then we start to descend all the way back down. We transfer again to the thumb, and it's that transfer between bass strings and treble strings that's really nice and smooth. So as the index finger finishes all 3 treble strings, boom, that's us down onto the D. So the thumb finishes its bass work, it sits, index finger releases, then middle, then ring finger. So at this point the fingers are just nice and floating, nice and relaxed, and then the middle comes back the way, the index, then all 3 go to plant again, and we take over with the thumb. So it's a nice simple pattern. Now I do it all sorts of different tempos. I'm going to start to speed it up a little bit. So obviously I've explained it to you there just now, but usually it's moving quite fast immediately in my warm-up. It's starting about this tempo. Sometimes I might take the ascent quite slow, and then maybe play the descent twice as fast. I always find descending scales or descending patterns a little bit more difficult when playing pieces, so sometimes it's nice to warm up from the A finger back to the thumb. The thumb's always going to feel quite strong and quite warmed up. Another thing you can do with this is you can work on your power and your projection, so you can think about taking a nice really long deep stroke with all the fingers and with the thumb. I'm doing this apart from the thumb when it plants on the D string and the fingers when they go back down. Everything here is a tarando movement, it's a free stroke movement. And when I play the free stroke, I'm thinking about the elbow here and thinking about taking a stroke along the string. You can see that with my A finger. So I'm aiming for a nice rounded sound, and the direction of the stroke is across the string at a sort of diagonal angle towards the elbow, and that's helping me get a nice round sound. And with the thumb I'm going down. So that's my basic right hand. After a minute of that, 2 minutes of that, it's warmed up, okay? So let's leave that there for a second. Now I want to immediately warm up my left hand. If I drop my left hand down to my side, it's sort of just, sitting beside my thigh and straight down. If I just curl the bicep and bring the hand up to the guitar, without stretching down to first position or squeezing in towards 12, it should sort of come up to about the 5th fret. So if it's at fret 5, that's a nice place. You're not extending your hand at all or your arm out, and you're not compressing the hand in towards the body. It's quite relaxed. I want us to take our index finger and I want to simply tap the string, no right hand at all, so right hand can just, it's redundant for just now, and we tap across the guitar, okay? So I'm taking my index finger of my left hand and I'm at fret 5 and I'm literally just tapping the string all the way across the guitar. So from the low E string, the thickest of the strings, all the way to the top E string, the thinnest, okay? I'm aiming to tap with the same part of the fingertip. So when you look at your fingers, you can see a line often in the fingertip of where you've been pressing. I want to see that line just once. So no matter if I'm playing the 6th string or all the way to the top to the highest E string and the thinnest string, I'm addressing the string with the same part of my fingertip, okay? It's important what my other fingers are doing at this moment in time. The 2nd, 3rd and 4th fingers are really relaxed, okay? They're just pointing towards the instrument, and there's daylight between every single one of them, and that's important that there's daylight, okay? You can see a gap between the index and the middle and the ring, and in the ring and the pinky finger, the 4th finger, okay? That means that the fingers are relaxed. There's no tension, there's nothing pointing up in the air. We don't want fingers filling with tension, and we don't want fingers compressing together, so there's no space between them, okay? So again, I'm just tapping quite lightly the fingerboard, and what that does is it makes my finger tip make contact with the string, and then it pushes the string down into the fingerboard. So what this is actually doing is it's calibrating my left hand, and it's telling my left hand fingertip, this is how much pressure I need to create the pitch. If I was doing this, so I'm still doing the same movement, but I'm not applying enough pressure, the string's getting nowhere near the fingerboard, and what that means is I'm actually not using enough pressure. If I did something like this, and it zoomed off the edge of the fingerboard, sometimes that can happen. Sometimes you might have experienced doing that in a piece yourself. Actually using way too much pressure, okay? So the string should be staying quite level, shouldn't be getting pulled or pushed vertically or in any way down towards the floor or up towards the sky. You should be using the very tip of the finger, and you should be moving across. Now as I move across, one other thing to note that's important in the warm-up is don't start turning the fingertip, so by the time you get to the end you've actually got a T, you've made a cross in your fingertip with where the string was making an indentation. You want to just relax the shoulder and drop the arm down, right? Okay, so you're addressing the string with the same part of the fingertip each time, and then you want to try it with the 2nd finger at fret 6. This is where you have to be careful that the adjacent finger now below, that's finger 1, doesn't start pointing up towards the sky or filling up with unwanted tension. Then you could try 3rd finger at fret 7. Missed that one, there we go, that's better. Now remember that you want these to be nice and clear every time. If you're not warmed up, you might find your finger going in between the string. That's exactly what you don't want. You want to get this calibration and this accuracy going, yeah? Then 4th finger, always a weak one with 4, so you're really wanting to try and work that finger to get that to be as responsive as possible. And you're not wanting to telegraph this movement. And what I mean by that is you don't want to send as a message to say your 4th finger is going to be pushing down that fret anytime now. So you don't want to take a big running jump at it. You want to be quite close in to the fingerboard and putting that energy into the string and then the fingerboard with a very exact, accurate quality. Okay, so staying nice and close to the string. Okay, so this actually can marry up with that right hand exercise I gave you at the very beginning. And that's really important, because what I like to do with all these little technical warm-up exercises is try and put them together, and put them together quite quickly. Okay, so although I'm explaining everything through, so you've got a handle on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, what I'm also wanting to do is very quickly marry things up. So after not very long of doing that, and probably starting with the weaker fingers, the 4 and the 3, I immediately get into putting that exercise together. Okay, so this now has the PPPIMA right hand with the same nice planting between the bass register and the treble register of the guitar. But now I'm really synchronizing the hands. I'm marrying up the left hand with the right hand. So as I put the pressure in with the finger, tip onto the string and then into the fingerboard. It's at exactly the same time my right hand is striking now, okay? So everything is synchronized, really together, okay? And I'll probably vary the speed, maybe on the descent. This is what I like to do. I really like to work on my descending patterns and scales and movements. I feel that warms up my hand much quicker. So practice on my scales descending as well as ascending. Okay, you can do repetition, so maybe a slow repetition ascending and then a fast one down, another fast one up, and then recover at the top, change to another finger. This is third finger now at the 7th fret. So I'm varying the speed, okay? We all have our own tempo that we like to play at. I think it's important to try and move away from that when we're warming up. So try things, different speeds. Now, I'm still trying to keep daylight between the fingers and a nice movement just with the arm moving across the fingerboard and dropping down nice and naturally, not extending the elbow and not squeezing in. Now again, I can do lots of things with this. I can make this much more musical, okay, because it can be a bit robotic just going across like this all the time. So I can start to practice in things like maybe opening the right hand up a little bit, so putting more energy into the stroke here, and that has to be married up again with making sure this hand is very, very accurate in its placement so we don't get any buzz. So if I wanted to put some swells in, so say a crescendo, so starting quite piano and then moving to a nice full sound and then diminuendo away to the bottom, I'm putting in more pressure and more of a bigger stroke with the right hand as I get to the top of that phrase. But it's more interesting to practice it like this, opening the hand up and opening up the sound, than it is just at the one volume and at the one speed the whole time. So I might accelerando and at the same time bring down my dynamic. That's quite good to do. So if you're playing fast but trying to die away, or if you're playing slowly and getting louder, that's sort of counterintuitive. So that's quite good to practice as well. That immediately starts to wake up your brain to what you're about to spend the next part of the day doing, which could be working on your pieces and thinking about all those musical ideas. So I've married up the hands now. I would always start with the third and the fourth fingers because they're the weakest ones. And if you were doing this every day, very quickly, 1 and 2 would be very warmed up. So 4 and 4 and 3, they're the weak ones. Now remember, you don't always have to do this in 5th position. You could take this to 3rd position, you could take this to 1st position. Down here you have a bit of an extension to the left arm now. Definitely a little bit harder down there. More fret to play with. So anyway, that is a really good way of 2 very quick exercises, left and right hand, a bit of calibration and getting everything to go together. Okay, so the next warm-up exercise I like is specifically a right hand exercise, and it's a little bit more of a complex pattern than I first started with when I was just doing PPP, IMA across the guitar. This is where I like to marry up in the right hand the thumb and different combinations of fingers. So we're going to start with thumb, playing a pincer movement, so working together with the A finger, okay? And that's going to be on the extremities of the guitar, the low E and the high E. So the 2 E strings plucked together, P and A, okay? Then there is another part to this pattern. The right hand continues M, I, M. So what that is so P and A together, M, I, M, P and A together, M, I, M. That's just continuing. So it's very straightforward. It's in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the bass presenting itself with the A finger on the first of each group of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really straightforward, right? Okay, now I want to move the thumb to the A string. Then I want to move it to the D string. Then I want to move it to the A string. So I'm moving it up and down, and then back to the bass. And I was repeating each pattern twice there. I wouldn't really do that when I'm warming up, I would repeat it once. Okay, so it's still this idea of separation between thumb working the bass strings and fingers working the treble strings and getting that warmed up. Now, the things I would immediately start to experiment with would be different articulations of the bass. This is really good for warming up the hand. So I would practice immediately dampening the thumb. So that means immediately replacing the thumb down as soon as it's taken the stroke, but not interfering with the pattern in the fingers, so that A, M, I, M is unaffected by the movement of the thumb. The thumb's playing staccato in the bass by immediately planting itself back down on the bass string. So now actually what you've got going on is, in the right hand, you've got a bit of control of polyphony, let's say. You've got the thumb really articulating one line completely differently from what the rest of the hand is doing. So they're starting to have a sort of separate identity. They're starting to work at opposites of each other, which is quite important in guitar playing, because you need, when you have both hands married up together and you're doing a variety of things, you need it to be able to think about as many different things as possible at the same time. Okay, we're playing a polyphonic instrument, we need to have control of these lines. So quite quickly in our warm-up, we've got to get the head thinking like that, and we've got to get the hands going with that too, abiding by that. So very simply, I was just always playing staccato on the bass, but a pincer movement of PA, M, I, M, and then the rest of that pattern going on. Very simple. Sometimes leave it legato as well. It doesn't always have to be staccato, just let it ring. Nice. So then, very quickly, what I start to do is I'll start mucking about with that bass. I'm now going to play the bass with the thumb and the middle. So it's a pincer movement on two combinations now, PA and PM. And that means that the first two notes of the group of four are with the bass. And I'm stunning the bass at the end, so I'm making the bass staccato. I'm not letting it ring. But again, my A, M, I, M is unaffected, but my now I'll let the bass ring. Bass line. Then I could take the first three notes of the group, so now I've got pincer movement PA, PM, PI. So only M now, on the final repetition of M, is free of a bass note. Bass notes are again stunned. Let's leave the bass notes long. That was 4. Put a bass with every single note. Much better to control it with the articulation of stunning it now. Then you might actually have to use some rest stroke, especially when you turn the bass round. So when the bass gets to the D string and you come back down to the A and the E, that's when you're going to have to rest through the A to control and rest through the E to control if you want it all stunned. If it's just ringing, stunned. As you ascend, everything is dampened anyway, but now you need to dampen with a rest stroke, like that, as you return down. Another thing I do with this pattern to warm it up more is to start to do it on different parts of the 4, so not just going 1, 2, 3, 4, but maybe doing it at the beginning and at the end, so on 1 and 4. So that's quite fun. So that's a really good way of starting to make more of a right hand warm up here, and again starting to think a little bit polyphonically, a little bit making your right hand do more than one thing at the one time. You don't even have to have the open strings. You could mute the guitar while you do that. And again, I would probably do that pattern for about 2 or 3 minutes. Next thing for warming up, let's go back to the left hand. One of the things I really like to do when I warm up is essentially shifting in the left hand, but with fixed fingers. And you find these in Scott Tennant's Pump and Nylon book, and a host of other technical exercises as well. What I would do here is I would not do too many of them, but at least get my fingers working so that when I'm playing chords and pieces and shifting chords and changing chords, my fingers have that pivotal movement warmed up. That's a big part of our playing, a little bit like the polyphony in the right hand. We did a huge amount of pivoting and stretching and getting into different shapes and different configurations of fingers with the left hand. So good place to set up, again, 5th fret, using the G string with index, middle, ring finger and 4th finger, all fixed on the G string. So fixed at 5, fixed at 6, fixed at 7 and fixed at 8. And what I'm doing here in the right hand is I'm putting my thumb on the A string, and I'm just putting my middle or index, whatever you want to use, on the B string, because I'm going to jump between the A string and the B string back and forth, okay? And what I'm going to jump is obviously in my left hand, but I want to strike that at the same time. So if I leave 2, 3 and 4 fixed, I'm jumping now. And I'm jumping between the A string and the B string, okay? So I'm just plucking those notes individually, thumb for the bass note on the 5th string, and index finger or middle, whatever you want to use, for the note on the B string. And it's very important that the 2, 3 and 4 remain fixed, and the 1 has all the work to do, leaving the 5th string and jumping all the way round to the B string. And then I'll take them to the extremities of the guitar, out to the low E string and the high E string. And what I'm trying to avoid here is rotating the elbow or moving the elbow about or swinging it about at all. Okay, I'm wanting this to be really nice and balanced and controlled. There we go. Okay, and then what I would like to do immediately is vary the speed. So a slow repetition followed by 2 fast repetitions. So it's really forcing the finger to work out to get warmed up. Again, back to that sort of mantra of not wanting to do things in the same tempo the whole time. Wanting to improve speed and strength, okay? So you can see the 1 is moving of its own accord. I mean, I'm obviously asking it to move, but it's not being pushed and pulled around by the 2nd, 3rd and 4th fingers. It's moving separately, it's moving individually. The 2 now will do the same thing. So again, now 1st is fixed along with 3 and 4, and 2 is making those jumps, okay? And what we don't want to see is that your other fingers start moving around, yeah, just because you've got an adjacent finger that's active here. What you don't want to see is that your 3rd and 4th start to drag down or pull the string out of tune. They just fixed, they're resting on the string, okay? And then let's move to the extremities quite quickly. So the 2 is having to do quite a lot of work from the low bass string to the high E string, and then back. Again, watching for any movement in the elbow or the arm, trying to keep that as relaxed as possible. What we're doing here is we're really training the finger to do the work, not the arm, okay? And then again you would start to double the tempo or play around with the tempo. It just makes it more interesting. Again, you could pick a faster tempo as well to get yourself going, then go to the 3rd finger. Now most people start to find the 3rd a bit harder, and the reason they find the 3rd a bit harder is it's a strong finger, but it's not a particularly mobile finger, especially when it has an adjacent 4 and an adjacent 2. It's got a lot to work against here, and it will find it hard to tuck itself in to the high E string here when it goes to the extremities, okay? And this is where you could start to feel that your elbow or your arm are sort of moving out the way, trying to help the finger accommodate. But what I would prefer you to do is get the strength of that finger built up on its own, so it can do this without any assistance from its colleagues. It's really working individually. Again, playing around with some speed in the groupings, really useful. So that's a good one. And then of course the 4 on the end. You might find that you need to move your arm a little bit to get the 4 to move back and forth, especially when you're doing the 6 strings like this now. If your 4 is very, very short, most people's 4th finger is quite short. But if you look at my elbow and my arm, you're not getting much movement of it. It's not swinging around to let that 4 get to that part, that high E string. Okay, so that's a really good one for warming up the fingers. Gets a wee bit more advanced now. I like to go in groups. So this is where this gets quite hard. I'm now moving my 1 and 2 as a group while fixing 3 and 4. And of course, they're not moving like this across like a group jumping. They're moving counter to each other. Okay, so they're in contrary motion, which if many of you studied the piano, you'll know that well. Scales in contrary motion. So this is fingers moving across the fingerboard in contrary motion. So this is quite advanced, this is quite hard. Again, keeping the arm very relaxed. So here, and then harder at tempo. And what you're wanting there is that both fingers make contact with their new note at the same time. So you don't subconsciously favour, say, the index. This is me favouring the index, it's moving first and then the 2's catching up. It's moving first and then the 2's catching up. And that would mean that you could often get maybe one note sounding and the other note not sounding when you sort of move the shift. So if both are arriving at their destination at the same time, then you know that both fingers are lifting and releasing at the same time. You're not favouring one or the other. Then you would try that with 2-3. Tricky. Most people find this one the hardest one, especially when you stretch out to the 6th strings, to the extremities of the instrument, and then back in. Vary the tempo, really good for your practice to try a slow and then a fast, and then outer strings. Harder, that was harder. I'm not that warmed up today. There we go. Okay, much harder there. And then the 3-4. No one likes this group at all. Now I'm just running through these very fast for you. You have to do them quite slowly if you're not used to doing them. Don't worry if these are really difficult at first. They will come online a little bit at a time. Your fingers will get stronger, they'll be used to these movements. At first it might feel like, oof, this is really difficult and it's really a stress on your hand. Don't hurt yourself, don't play until you're sore. Listen to your fingers as they feel tired or they get fatigued. Stop, give them a break. So these are the group that I would probably work on the most. They seem the most not good at being warmed up right now. They need a bit of work. Now you can see my arm starting to move a little bit here, especially with this 3 and 4 pivot on the E strings. It needs to accommodate a little bit there. I've got quite small hands, so I'm trying to rotate them as quickly as possible and not favour a particular finger. Okay, and then relax your hands after something like that. Let the energy dissipate a little bit. On that subject of pivotal warm-ups, I sometimes do Scott Tennant's spider exercise, which you'll find in his Pump and Nylon. Sounds like this. Very similar exercise to what I was doing in terms of 2 finger combinations moving in contrary motion. But it can go up the fingerboard, so you're practicing different sizes of frets. And one key thing about Scott's exercise that I think is really good is you're holding all fingers down until you complete a cycle. So you start with C, finger 1 on fret 1 B string, finger 3 on fret 3 A string, so C octaves, fingers 1 and 3, and then you put down C sharps, which are immediately after the C naturals. But you hold the 1-3 down, so you don't just go then release, you actually hold down, and then you do what's B flat and D moving to B and E flat, so 1-3 and then 2-4. So you get that pivot from the C's and then back, and then you start moving that up the fingerboard. And this, that's a beast of an exercise, especially if you do it on the outer strings. So that's great for your pivotal movement and your control and your release. And as you practice it getting higher, smaller frets, which is nice to practice squeezing your fingers in. Another thing I like to add to my warm-ups, which marries up right and left hand, is scales. Not a huge fan of scales, but they are very important for playing guitar. I like to do something that will immediately warm up my right hand in terms of alternation, and left hand going from smaller 1 octave shapes to 2 to 3, so then exploring the fingerboard more. So it's really about working on alternation and some speed here, and getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the fingerboard, and sort of knowing more of that fingerboard and getting everything warmed up. So what I like to do is practice scales in groups, and groups of right hand repetition. So for a warm-up I do 4s, 3s, 2s and 1s. So that's 2 even numbers, 4s and 2, and 2 odd numbers, 3 and 1. When I'm doing string crossing, if I do groups that are even, I always string cross with the same finger. If I'm doing string crossing with odd fingerings, then it's always a different finger that does that string crossing. So if you take, for example, a C major scale, if I do single strokes like that, just plucking every note once, I'm essentially always changing on a different finger. So I'm doing that scale I-A, and I do I for the string cross, and then A for the string cross, okay? If I do that with, let's say, 2 repetitions, then every single time I change string, it's the same finger. If I do a 3, index finger that time, A finger that time. So quite quickly I've developed a pattern for warming up which uses ascending in 4s, descending in 3s, ascending in 2s, and descending in the single strokes 1 note. And what that starts to do immediately is get this feeling of alternating with different fingers as I string cross. Checking that my alternation is generally working. If you're doing this any pattern, IM, MA, it's really good for your alternation. And it's good to change at the top to the new repetition. So if I start the C major in 4, sorry, I'll try that again. 3, 2, and then the single stroke 1 at the end. So what this is quite good is, almost without you knowing, you start to play single strokes, just 1 note per pluck. You start to do that very quickly, especially on descending, which, as I said sort of earlier on, descending is the hardest way to do that. So quite quickly you can extend that to 2 octaves. 4s, 3s, 2, and then the 1s at the end, okay? Then you can go 3 octaves. And then your single stroke at the end. So already it's not long. I mean, it takes about 20-30 seconds to play a full scale, but in 4s, 3s, 2s and 1s, changing at the top and at the bottom of the scale, therefore changing the articulation on the string cross. You can do different combinations, maybe PA, PM, something that really will warm up different parts of your hands. So I love the scales and different repetitions for warming up. Slurring, really, really good for the left hand. What I'll tend to do is just really simple groups. Make my right hand the same as it was for that very first exercise. So my right hand is very simply P, 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 I, M, A. I do the good practice of planting between the bass register and the treble register. But what I'm doing now is just hammering on. And I'm just practicing my hammer-ons. I think they warm up the left hand very quickly, hammer-ons. You're doing most of the work really with the left hand on its own. You're just striking once and then it's all down to the next finger to fill that next fret. I'm wanting all the fingers close to the guitar and not sort of pushing away or filling up with tension. And then I'll quickly move to 2-3. I'll vary speeds like I've been doing all the way through my warm-up. Then 3 and 4. Probably this would be where I would start. Always want to work on my weakest fingers, which are my 3 and my 4. So I would always focus on them first. Notice that I'm doing this in first position, so I've abandoned my usual fret 5. This is because it's harder here. It's going to be tougher, it's going to warm up my hand faster. And also this will just have some benefit technically. It's not just about warming my hand up now, this is actually just good strength and conditioning for my fingers. They don't have to be adjacent ones, they can be 1-3. 2-4, change on the descend. So, really good. And then of course you do the pull off as well. I'm getting quite a snappy pull off. I'm looking for that sound. I want it to be like a pluck with my left hand. I don't want one of these where there's no sound to it. I want to control exactly how clear it sounds. So I do these are always a big part of my warm-up. They really get the blood flowing to the fingers. This is 4-3, this is where I would start again. This is where it would take the most time for my fingers to get online to feel really comfortable. So I'll probably warm these up for a while, focus on these guys. If my piece starts with something 3 and 4, I want to have done some work on these. The best one to do if you don't have much time is a combination of hammer-ons and pull-offs. Best of both worlds. So you're not spending specific time ascending or descending, pulling off or hammering on, but you're doing a combination. Almost like trills as well, you know, at the end of a piece. So they're really good. There's a whole host of things you can put into a warm-up. I want you to come up with your own ideas. Maybe the last thing I would do for warming up is a bit of exercise on the barre. I have a nice exercise using a tremolo fingering and establishing a barre bit by bit. So making it not come from a barre at the beginning, then to a 2-string barre, then a 3-string, which is a half barre, then 4, then 5, and then 6. So what I do, back to my favourite, fret 5, position 5. Right hand is now P, A, M, I, a standard tremolo fingering, P, A, M, I. And what I'm doing is I'm walking index, middle, ring finger, and pinky finger, 1, 2, 3, 4, from fret 5 to fret 6 to 7 to 8. So it's fingers per fret in 5th position with a right hand tremolo fingering. No barre yet at all. But now I'm going to bar the B and E strings and play a chord with my thumb. So now the thumb is taking 2 strings, the B string and the E string, and I'm getting a nice barre, and I'm getting that B string ringing on all the way through the tremolo fingering. Then let's make it a half barre. So now I've got 2 strings ringing on of the barre, the G string and the B string, while my fingers work out that pattern. And then let's do 4 strings. And what I'm doing here is I'm incrementally building the whole bar chord. Then 5. I'm not just practicing trying to put a barre down immediately, a full bar, and just try and struggle to make it work. Then 6. So what we should have at the end is we'd have all the strings ringing and that nice pattern on top. And that second finger going down on fret 6, and then that 3rd, and then that 4th, they all will try and make that barre want to lift or buzz or not sustain. And then I'm releasing to 5. Then I'm going to release to 4. Then I'm going to release to 3. Then 2. Then 1. So no bar anymore. Nice. practice. Now at the end, I've gone from starting to put the pressure on from a single string to double, to 3, to 4, to 5, to 6, where my barre is fully extended, and then back through 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I incrementally learn how to put the pressure down for the different stages of the barre. I want the finger to be really parallel with the fret, not coming at an angle, but as it puts down, it does it parallel the whole time and stays straight. Again, I was doing this at fret 5. If you did this at fret 3 or fret 1, it would be even tougher for your barre down there. The whole idea behind just sharing some of what I do is these are things that I've done when I was a student, these are things that I do now. They're things that really start to get my brain thinking in the right way to do some practice today, and they get my fingers moving, the blood flowing, and they sort of focus on the things that I need to get my fingers to give me the best platform, the best fundamental sort of basic warm up and technique to go forward into the rest of the day's practice. You might find that some exercises you would want to do for longer, or you'd want to prioritise, or you might have your own to add in. That is absolutely perfect. The main thing is to get up and get yourself doing a warm up every day before you start working on that repertoire that you're trying to perfect. Okay, good luck with it. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy thinking about these things. Add your own, make up your own 30-40 minute warm up technique practice routine for the day. Good luck, stay safe.